What's good, everybody? It's your boy Dakota. I've just done so many takes of this video. You have no idea, but I'm just here to tell you thank you so much for supporting the show. If you like what I'm doing, subscribe to the channel, leave this video a little like, leave it a little comment. If you're an audio person, leave me a little 5 stars, maybe leave me a little review. Whatever you can manage, it all means a lot and it all helps. And go ahead and check out all the links I got in the description to support both myself and whoever the guest is this week. I always try to make sure that I leave links in the description so that you can follow the fighters once the show is debuted. And I hope you enjoy this episode. Well, anyway, we're here for episode 118, I believe, of the Slip and We podcast. If I'm wrong, I will fucking edit that in the description. But I'm back with my guy, Ryan Songalia of Boxingscene. Ryan, I think the last time I saw you, we were at the Danny Garcia fight, right? I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I was in Brooklyn. I mean, it was hard to miss me. We were one of the few people there, so it's bound to run into you.
Yeah, we weren't in a giant media scrum, we'll call it that, right? It was a little bit more of a modest media area for that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, man. But I really appreciate you having me on, and it's always great chopping it up with you, bro.
Bro, always great to talk to you. One of my favorite guys in boxing. So you are there's a lot that's been different in the last couple of years in the sport since you were on. I was looking, you were back on the show back at the end of 2023. It's hard to think that's all over 2 years ago at this point. But there's a lot that's changed, right? Like the whole landscape of the sport has changed, where you're working has changed. But I guess the first thing I want to ask you is obviously you've switched from being a longtime contributor to the Ring Magazine. You're now with Boxingscene. What was that like? How's it been for you at Boxingscene, and how's that transition been?
I mean, I love Boxingscene. That's where I started. I actually started there. My earliest relationships interacting with the boxing world were at Boxingscene. When like Boxingscene first launched, I don't know if people realize this, but it was a forum, and then they had these videos like before YouTube where you could like on Windows Movie Player like watch like uh illegally posted boxing videos. Like I remember like it was like Oleg Moskayev versus Rahman for one when he's knocking this is like 25 years ago about knocking out Rahman through the ropes and all these cool highlights. So I found it from looking online for boxing videos, and then I would be in the forums, and I was like a forum troll. I was like, I want to say like 15, 16 years old, and I would be in there all day arguing with people and just getting like banned all the time because I would start problems. But yeah, no, I loved Boxingscene, and then they actually gave me my first gig, my first steady gig when I was 18 or 19 years old. And so yeah, no, it's great to be back with them. And I have so many great friends over there. Matt Christie, Tris Dixon, obviously Jason Langendorf, David Greisman, who was like one of like the first people that actually gave me feedback and real advice on being a writer, and still someone that I respect greatly to this day. But yeah, no, I was at Ring for 13 something years, something like that. And I have a lot of great friends over there still. Doug Fisher, obviously, a good friend of mine, and someone who really gave me a chance when I was a young guy, and Mike Coppinger. So, I mean, a lot of great guys over there too, and I wish them all the best. But like, I'm glad that Boxingscene to be back home with Boxingscene because they really gave me my start, and it's crazy. I remember when I the first story I wrote back on Boxingscene at the end of 2024, I think it was, and you could see like the contributors, like all the links, and there's like one that's right there, like of 20 late 2024, and then the one before that is like 2011. So like you could see all my stories that I wrote when I was a teenager. They're still there. So it's great to just continue that lineage of my progress in the sport.
Well, and people definitely have very easy access to your old work now.
Yeah, that was my issue with the old ring site was that you could click on the archive, like the name on the archive, and it would not like it would show like the last few ones, and then it would just go to general. So it was not a great thing for. I mean, I'm sure it's better now, but because there's like a lot more money into it. But the old site was not great for archives. So a lot of the stories I would just have to look through my own tw old Twitter feed and like find the links there. Like that was to find a story, because I'm like, I know I wrote about this guy, but I have no way of finding it.
Yeah. Well, I one thing I would love to ask you with as we start out here, because I know you've worked with him a decent amount. Why are we getting Pacquiao Mayweather too, Ryan? Can you explain this to me, bro?
Someone's gonna give them money for it, like
I know, bro, but
that's the reason
why?
why. I was at the first one. I was actually one of the worst weeks of my life, professionally. I mean, good for them. They made a lot of money, but I didn't sleep. I was so jet lagged. I came in from Manila, and I just remember one thing I'll say is that that was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. I don't know how big of a fan of Batman you are, but I was a big fan of especially the Tim Burton movies. And I looked back and I saw Michael Keaton and I saw Jack Nicholson, and I'm like, I have better seats than them. This is craziness. Like, like I almost on principle wanted to give Michael Keaton my seat. But it was actually pretty interesting because that was like one of the few times where I saw like the real mainstream media, like Jeremy Shapp and guys who would never be caught dead in a boxing match. Like I feel like for a lot of people, like going to a boxing fight is like the equivalent of being caught at a dog fight. You know what I mean? And so you won't see some of these like real top tier guys.
A-listers.
Yeah, like the Stephen A. Smith guys. But I saw those guys, and I was like, it was a kind of cool thing. But yeah, getting back to your point, yeah, someone's gonna give him a lot of money to fight, and I understand from Mayweather's perspective why he would take that fight because it's gonna be a quote unquote real sanctioned fight, and Mayweather is just turned 49, so he will be fighting someone else who is well past his prime as well. And for Pacquiao, I mean, he's always wanted this fight. I remember just sort of like the weird feeling leaving Pacquiao's room the next day after the fight and talking to Freddie Roach at at the elevator. And I'm like, so what happens next for Manny? And he's just like, there was a sort of like dead end that I usually don't hear from Freddie, who's like a great, like if you need a quote, he's gonna give you the quote.
Yeah.
But Freddie goes, I don't know. I guess we hope for the Mayweather rematch. And I never hear Freddie, a guy who speaks in certainties and definitives, talk about hope. So like I always got the feeling that this was always sort of like the thing that Manny would drop everything for. And the money doesn't hurt either, I guess, right?
Why now though? Why 10 years, 11 years later, by the time they actually get in the ring, why when they're both pushing 50? You know, the iron probably was hotter in 2016, 2017 when Floyd was fighting Conor McGregor. Manny was still very much a relevant, active fighter at that time. But is that the reasoning, right? Is does Floyd view it as less of a threat because he's fighting and also an older fighter who hasn't been particularly active?
No, I think actually the distance actually helps them because it gave us it gave the public time to forget, how much of a dud that fight was. And it wasn't like so. Manny went into that fight with a right shoulder injury, and that was a real injury because I remember all these conspiracy things. I mean, some of the dumbest people you ever meet on Twitter will be like, oh yeah, man, he just made that excuse up. Yeah, so he decided to not throw the right hook, and fight as a one-handed fighter, so that he could have an excuse later on. Come on, get serious. But because I remember actually being in the gym with Manny after that, whatever the fight was after that, I forget.
I think it was Bradley.
It was Bradley, yeah. So I was there for the camp, and there was no one else there. This was like the beginning of camp, and so I'm on the other. So the way the Manny's gym was is in the Philippines. You walk in, and then there's like glass windows over there, which was always funny to me because like when he would like ban people, like not ban people, like oh closed door, media session, and then you could go across the street to the mall, and then people were just watching Manny train from the mall, I mean, whatever. But but I was on the other side of the ring, and Freddie is telling Manny to throw the right hook after the left hand, right? And Freddie, and so Manny's like, "Oh no, I don't want to. That's how I hurt my arm the last time." And Freddie's like, kind of like almost asking him, but almost like needs to be reassured himself. Like, you're not still worried about that, are you? Like, so that was real. That was a real injury. You don't get surgery on a shoulder just to for an alibi. But yeah, back to my original point. I'm sorry. Was that Pacquiao and Mayweather? That was not a great fight.
It sucked. No, let's just be real. It
Yeah,
wasn't
that's a
good.
good way to
It
call it.
sucked.
Yeah, that's a more succinct way to say it. Yeah, and I remember just being like, "This is it. This is what we waited for." You know what I mean? Like, so I think that enough time has passed that people will be like, "Oh, maybe it'll be different." I mean, this fight has nothing to do with boxing. You know what I mean? Like, I would not consider either guy if they were fighting guys their own age to be like top five guys in their weights now. It's a fight solely for money, and there's a nostalgia factor. It's a money grab. I don't know how else to put
Well,
it.
it feels like one of the bigger changes, maybe since we did this show together, right? Is it that these types of spectacle fights that maybe 5 years ago or so, we would have thought, oh man, that'd be funny if they did that again, but it wouldn't actually happen by and large. Now we're in an era in boxing where if you can think of kind of like a fantasy fight of sorts, it's much more likely now than I think it would have been even a couple of years ago when these guys were a few years younger and whatever. But in 2026, there is more of a market, or at least, big companies are willing to kind of get behind whether it's Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul or it's Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao pushing 50.
Well, that's the thing. Netflix, which is going to air that fight, they're not in the market for serious fights, right? They do spectacle stuff. I mean, and that's not a knock against them, but it's they don't have regularly scheduled boxing programming. So these one-off things, which generally are freak shows,
Outside of maybe Crawford and Canelo.
yeah, no, that was a big important fight. But even that fight, like, if you were talking a couple years ago, yeah, Canelo and Crawford are gonna fight. They'd be like, "What are you smoking?" Like,
Why? They might say why, they're not the
yeah, but
same
then of
size.
course, Crawford turned out to be pretty good. Turned out to be a pretty okay fighter. But yeah, no, I think that's what it is that there are people who are willing to pay absurd amounts of money for these sort of like spectacle fights. And Netflix is one of them, obviously. They do that more to a higher percentage than others, but we saw Turkey Al Sheikh. He wants Alexander Usyk to fight a kickboxer. He posted a video of a 2016 highlight of some. I think he's a Dutch kickboxer, knocking some guy out. And he's like, I want to see him fight Usyk. And that's the kind of guy that he could snap his finger and produce the kind of money needed to make that happen. He put on Tyson Fury versus Ngannou. These things that have nothing really to do with boxing, but I mean, I guess if enough people are willing to see it, like Adrian Broner, remember he was like, people would ask him, what do you think about fighting, this guy from the UFC, right? Or whatever. And he'd be like, yeah, and after that, I'll fight Tom Brady, like, I mean, like, nowadays, I think someone would hear that, like, oh man, we got to make that Tom Brady versus Adrian Broner fight.
Yeah, for real. And I definitely we'll get back to Mr. Al Sheikh. I'm curious about a couple your thoughts on a couple different things in regards to him because I think he's been an integral part of creating some of these spectacle type fights. But just to round out the actual fight itself, like you've been around him, what's keeping Manny motivated? Is he truly just like a competitor, like a compulsive competitor, the way Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant are? Because for Floyd, it's like I kind of get it. He's in court. There's always some sort of like looming money issue with him, and I think that for the last decade, he's really struggled to not have the spotlight on him and has looked to kind of pick his moments to get little flashes of the spotlight back for himself. But what do you think is keeping Manny going at this point, 75 fights or whatever into his pro career?
I mean, that's the thing about boxing is that it's really fun when everything is you're on the top and everything's going great, but there's not a great exit strategy for it. And I think that's sort of the issue with all these athletes. I mean, um, yeah, I mean, what do you want me to say? I think after a certain number of years of not fighting, you need to make money again. I think that's what it comes down to, like for some of these guys. Yeah, no, I think that's they continue to work, and the bills continue to come in. I don't see. I mean, I do think that for Manny there is an intrinsic motivation there, but I don't think that intrinsic motivation would be as strong if not for the extrinsic factors. You know what I mean? So I think that's what it comes down to
It
for,
gets easier for him to go, oh, finally I can have my revenge because there's so much money. You know what I mean?
yeah, basically. I mean, I think that for I mean, you gotta understand something like Manny is an economy unto himself. So it's like I remember like walking out of his gym at times and there would be like hordes of people waiting around to like for Manny to like give him something
Yeah.
I mean it was very real. Like Manny takes care of his community in a way that I mean I'll tell you this like Manny does not like to say no to people. You know what I mean? So I could see how like after a while it's like, you know what, I need another one of those Floyd Mayweather, paydays to keep the party going, so to speak.
Do you think it has any significance in his legacy if he were to get some get back on Floyd, even though they are much older? Does it still have any genuine meaning in like a boxing legacy context?
Yeah, 100%. And I'll tell you why,
Yeah.
man. Because like I'm actually Filipino American, spoiler alert. And so I am around a lot of Filipinos and Filipino Americans and whenever Mayweather's brought up, like it's always like trying to like, there's a lot of people that are very sore about that loss still. I remember even McDonald's in the Philippines, um, McDonald's Philippines, McDo as they call it over there, they had an ad campaign um, for their ice cream, and it was called, and the ad said "Beat the Mayweather," and it was like ice cream, that was I think that's still a huge thing. Like that I don't know how much it would matter internationally, or in America. Um, I mean, it's almost like did Aaron Pryor losing to Bobby Joe Young like ruin his legacy? No, the guy was, legally blind. But it's like for Pacquiao fans and Pacquiao, I think it would feel really good for him
Do you
to
think that loss has holds a special significance even to Filipino fans as a whole, more so than Juan Manuel Marquez, or more so than the first Tim Bradley fight, or Jeff Horn, or some of the other maybe hard luck losses he's had over the years? That the Mayweather fight, because of the significance of it, is stuck with people.
I think that when you're talking about particularly casual fans,
Yeah.
The Mayweather fight is specifically hard to swallow because it was sort of like, oh, this guy's ducking us. He's running. He's scared of Pacquiao. and then the bell rings, and all those things that they expected Manny to do, none of them happened. Um,
It happened a couple times. Like he got his little flurries off in that first half.
Yeah, I suppose, but like Manny was too much on the line. And if
Mhm.
you're a southpaw and you're squared up and you're on the line and you can just sort of like reach out and touch your right hand, it's hard to win those fights. And that was sort of the issue with Manny in that fight. Is that Floyd knew exactly what Floyd did his studies on him and it was very, very effective. I think the Marquez knockout, I think Filipino fans especially, there is a tremendous amount of respect that Filipinos and every Filipino, you go to like, what I'm talking about, like you can go to like the food court at the mall and the person who's like, serving you Jollibee is gonna have seen all four of the Marquez fights. So Filipinos really know who Juan Marquez is, and there's a tremendous amount of respect. I think because of the way he fought too, because I mean, first off, I don't care, where you're from. You could be from Mars. And you watch how Marquez gets off the floor 3 times in the first round of the first fight and then comes back and gets a draw, and you're going to have a tremendous amount of respect for him. But among Filipino fans, it's like Marquez is like a very well respected person. Mayweather, I think that um, because of obviously, Manny made a lot of money with Mayweather, but for people, they look at it sort of as like this was the one that they wanted. This was because Manny was not just a boxer. Like, here in America, we have boxers, we have Errol Spence, we have, these excellent fighters, but the fighters go away and, we're on to the next one. Manny sort of like was the validation of the Filipino identity for a long time. So the ultimate validation would have been, oh, we beat Mayweather. He's the best. We're number one. You know what I mean? And that they didn't get that feeling, and it was a feeling that, oh, why didn't Floyd stand in front of Mayweather, and why didn't Floyd stay in front of Pacquiao and let him hit him? You know what I mean? It's sort of like that. You know what I mean? Like I dealt with this with a lot of casual fans, and Marquez's way of fighting was a lot more enjoyable or respectable for the casual fans than Mayweather's.
And so that rivalry developed more of a meaning to Filipino fans.
Yeah, it was the ultimate. It was the ultimate validation, and this is a generalization. These are the people that I spoke with. I don't know how everyone else felt, but for the most part, if there were 100 Filipinos in a room, and Filipino Americans, 99 were rooting for Manny, and there's one contrarian, of course. But like, it was seen as the ultimate validation of the Filipino identity, um, and it was sort of like what Pacquiao supporters of Filipino descent felt was the would have been the rightful culmination of the Pacquiao story arc.
Why didn't they do it sooner?
Because people remembered how bad that first fight was, and
Right. It left a bad taste in their mouth. They were like, why the fuck would I want to see that again?
yeah, like
It always felt like there was just a bag of money sitting there, you know?
yeah, but I mean, it's sort of like I was watching this thing about Jesse Ventura talking about the Predator movies, right? And before the first Predator movie comes out, the producers already were offering Arnold a crazy amount of money to do the second one, right? And he turns it down. And Jesse Ventura's like, "Why? You crazy, man? Take the money." He's like, chill out. Let's let it sit a bit. If we don't go away, they can't miss us, right? So I think the time, and he's like, and then when the second Predator movie came out, he made a bag. But yeah, I think it was like that. It's like you can't the people can't miss you if you don't go away. And that's that scarcity. Mayweather was the best at this. Mayweather followed sort of the Sugar Ray Leonard business model of making his fights not seem like regularly scheduled events and then maximizing the money. You know what I mean?
He was the best at that. I guess my hope for it is that they don't like embarrass themselves and their legacies because they were I would say, inarguably the best two fighters of the previous era of boxing, and certainly were formative in my fanhood and for a lot of different fight fans.
I mean, that's the thing about boxing is that like sometimes like and obviously this is not in relation to Mayweather and Pacquiao, but sometimes you can get two boxers who are not at the highest caliber, and that's a better fight than two boxers of the highest caliber. Um, as long as it's an evenly matched thing, you'll get some drama. Like I mean, I'm sure that there are people that watch snail races and they get like really interesting because like, oh man, like, I wonder which one's gonna win. Well, they're both not running that fast. Well, it's a competitive thing. I think they're both shot. No, I'm not gonna say shot, but they're both on the decline enough that something could happen. We remember what happened with Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns, the first fight. These were two guys at their peaks, at the prime of their abilities, and they gave a great fight, and it went one way. And then the rematch happens, and there are some factors, age and whatever, in the interim, and what's his face, and then it goes a different way. Tommy Hearns drops him twice, and arguably gets robbed, even though like people say that, but I'm like, that was a really competitive fight otherwise. So it's but yeah, like some things could happen. We may see a different fight, we may see a better fight. Sometimes when you get two guys where they've declined enough, some of their vulnerabilities show up in a way that makes it interesting.
I think of like when I think of the I guess you should say like the advent of spectacle fights, right? There's obviously Muhammad Ali was like fighting, some wrestler that was rolling around on the floor on his back, right? But those didn't really have the public's attention in the same way, at least to my understanding. Obviously, I wasn't alive. Um, but when I think about the beginning of that modern spectacle, I think of Mayweather McGregor because it was the first time that there was a fight kind of being sold as not like,
Right.
yeah, exactly. It was sort of a fugazi if you knew, right? If you were a boxing person, you knew what it was, but they were really trying to sell it, at least to MMA fans, like it was something real. Do you agree that that was kind of like an inception moment for these types of fights to be relevant in like a bigger market?
Do I agree with that? Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, first off, Ali versus Inoki, I feel was like the beginning of MMA, if when you think about it,
Yeah.
because like two different styles. But do I think that I mean, yeah, I think that was the beginning of like the money grabs. Because that was a money grab. Like Mayweather versus Conor McGregor had nothing to do with boxing.
And they knew that there was a legion of like Monster Energy wearing motherfuckers that were gonna buy right into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember like some of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life. And I'm like, people are saying, well, Conor McGregor is going to beat Mayweather. You know why? Because he's not a boxer. And I'm like, yeah, that's like me saying, I'm going to beat LeBron James because I'm not a basketball player.
He's not
Okay.
gonna see it coming, right?
Yeah, he's not going to know how to deal with my style. You know what I mean? Because he's never seen moves like mine, except in like, an LA Fitness, court. But like, yeah, no, it was the dumbest thing in the world. I mean, that was the easiest money you could grab, betting against those guys. And yeah, I think that it was Mayweather, he was Money Mayweather for a reason. He saw money and he went for it. I mean, I'm trying to think of some of the other guys that like, I mean, you know, if there was money to be made, he was going to make it. He didn't care what it did to the sport. Good for him, I guess. But like, yeah, no, I don't think that we're in this era right now where like, Jake Paul is fighting, well, yeah, whoever MMA guy without Floyd Mayweather doing that first. And credit to the casuals that pay these guys exorbitant amounts of money for fights that are ultimately not competitive.
Yeah, and I think obviously the Paul brothers are a piece of that, and then of course I think Turkey Al Sheikh is a piece of that. What one of the first major events being Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou, kind of weaponizing that MMA fan base that maybe doesn't entirely right because I feel like one of the differences is in boxing culture. Like I have no interest in telling you that Tyson Fury is going to beat Francis Ngannou in a grappling match. I don't know what I'm talking about, and I don't even know what I'm looking at, but they have no issue saying, well, Tyson Fury's never fought anybody that hits as hard as Ngannou, and they have all these rationales for why their guy will be able to compete with a boxer. And I feel like that was another example of kind of weaponizing that ignorance.
Yeah, I mean, but that was a little bit more competitive just because
Sure.
Tyson Fury forgot to show up to train and,
He was
had,
probably doing, he's doing little bumps, little lines in the locker room, whatever he was doing, a couple Guinnesses.
I mean, hey, I don't know what was going on, but I know that it wasn't training right. Hey, and I'll tell you something, Ngannou, it's funny because Ngannou, I think, did not try to insult the boxing fans' intelligence, right? Because, he went out there and was just like, listen, I'm a fighter. And he wasn't talking crazy like Conor McGregor, where Conor McGregor was like trying to like convince people that he was actually secretly this great boxer. And he actually sort of, I feel like he exposed how, and I'm not trying to knock MMA fighters, but their striking skills are, while they may have better striking skills, obviously, than the average person, they're not going to be as developed as, say, someone who does strictly boxing. And Conor McGregor was, considered a striker in MMA terms. But when you actually saw him punching, he wasn't like doing it correctly. He wasn't
They don't
turning
know
his.
how to sit down on their shots without having their chin for this because they're used to the context of there could be a kick coming back. There could be somebody shooting at my legs. They have different scenarios they're playing out as they're punching.
Exactly. That's exactly the point I was trying to make. So like, but then that's, because when you actually saw McGregor landing these punches, he was landing some clean flush punches on Floyd because Floyd was just walking him down, because he knew that Connor was gonna break down, later in the fight, and he looked like, he looked like Manny Pacquiao in his prime finishing, Conor McGregor, which tells you a lot, right? But I think also the Ngannou fight with Fury exposed, and now I, in private, I say these things. I'm going to say this publicly, but there is a real skill gap between, say, a welterweight and a heavyweight. Like, shout out to my boy Adam Kesidre, who's a New York top amateur out over there, super heavyweight. But I always like, just messing with him. Like, oh man, heavyweights are trash, like all you gotta do is be big and stuff like that. And I feel like, obviously I'm oversimplifying and I'm breaking balls there, but Ngannou having success with Tyson Fury, to the extent that he had success in that fight, was sort of a vindication of that, oversimplification that I would sometimes say to my heavyweight friends just to when I'm just trying to mess with them. But which is funny because, like, I think even like someone like Deontay Wilder would say that. Like, you don't have to be like the best skilled guy. You just have to, be a tough guy
You got to
with a
land
punch.
one.
Exactly. When you're 240 pounds of solid muscles, hey, you can get away with some stuff. But I think that Anthony Joshua, when he fought Ngannou, he had sorry, excuse me, he had the appropriate response to that kind of a win, which was like indifference. Like, he looked like he was still waiting online to get into the building after he had knocked him out. You know what I mean? Like, because I mean, what did you actually prove? Nothing really. Other than like, hey, this guy didn't belong in there with me. Um, it was, yeah, I mean, it was dramatic in its violence, but you know, it didn't actually prove anything in the context of boxing. But again, I can't say nothing negative about what they did because those guys made a lot of money. Good for them. Like, I mean, like, I'm trying to think what would be the context for me. Like, I don't even know. For me, like, if I could make a lot of money writing about, a dog show, would I take the money to write about a dog show? Yeah, probably. I mean, it is what it is. We all got bills to pay.
I, the obviously Floyd being a piece of it, I think the Pauls being a piece of it, and then Turkey being a piece of it. That fight being kind of the start of the partnership between him and traditional boxing promoters. Like I've spent the last 2 years trying to figure out what to make of of the Saudi presence in the sport. There's been partnerships with traditional promoters. Then there's been creating their own promotion under the ring banner. Then you have Dana White and people from Zuffa Boxing saying all this real boxing shit, it's all bullshit. We're gonna wipe that off the face of the earth. And then Turkey saying, "Yep, that's my guy," and they're gonna do great things and they're gonna kill the competition. It just feels like a chaos agent sometimes. As much as there's been some really great matchups that have been developed from it, he has kind of come in and just started a little tornado. And I've been trying to figure out, take the good with the bad. But how do you view Turkey Al Sheikhs and the Saudi government presence in boxing in the last 3 years or so?
Like I wonder sometimes, like if I had infinity dollars and infinity cents, what would I do? And I don't know. I couldn't tell you, but I know what they would do because they're doing it right now. So like the way boxing has always been is that I feel like an uh extreme manifestation of libertarian capitalism where it was like completely unregulated. I mean, yeah, there were like there's legislation out there, but for the most part,
It's Wild West, baby.
100% it is. You could do whatever you want, and and you know what you're promised out there? You know what you're promised once you sign that boxing contract, or that license contract to become a boxer? You're promised this. Oh, opportunity. That's it. You're not, you know what I mean? So it's like you could make of it what you want. And there's this entrepreneurial thing where you can, like I've seen some boxers start off like as, say, for instance, like Floyd Mayweather. He was under a traditional boxing promoter, and then he broke off into his own thing, and then he made, unlimited money. And we saw that like Saddam Ali, for instance, turned pro out of the Olympics, self-promoted, built up his own value, and then was able to cash in later on. I feel like that while because even the UFC, which obviously is associated with TKO, um, even while they are like the dominant player in the market, um, there's still some space in that market, for other players. Obviously, like if you go up to the average person on the street and tell them, "Hey, what other MMA?" First off, if you they're not even gonna say, "Oh yeah, yeah, I know MMA." They're gonna say, "Oh, I know UFC." You know what I mean? Because it's that big of a
Kleenex tissue, like they're the brand name is the name of the product.
exactly. So, there are still players in in that market. Other people won't even know what they are. Like, oh yeah, I know them. That's Strike Force. No, the UFC bought them. Oh, Pride. No, UFC bought them too. But I think that there is still going to be opportunities for people to build outside of that TKO sphere. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, UFC came into MMA um, in a way that MMA just didn't exist in America at that point. Like boxing has been around for over 100 years. There's going to be opportunities still for other players, but I think that this is what they're saying is what they mean. There
Yeah.
isn't a whole lot of other ways to interpret it. I mean, when they're telling you what they're going to do and what their plans are, I mean, take them seriously. So I think there's right now, particularly, it's a good thing in some ways for boxers that TKO is in this sphere now because as you saw, like Conor Ben, he's gonna make. a lot of money, and I guess he's fighting Regis Prograis, which, that's great for him. But like, I don't think that fight generates that much. I mean, it's not even the main event. It's like the co-main event, and he's
On a
making
non-Zuffa card, by the way.
exactly.
Which
So
I
he,
think is where I get a little confused about the relationships, right? And I think this has all been coming to a head in the last few years. But on one hand, you have Dana saying we're going to wipe out the competition. And then I'm watching fights last weekend, and there's Oscar sitting next to Turkey Al Sheik at the Ryan Garcia Mario Barrios fight. And it's hard to, even somebody that's like an insider like me, it's hard to figure out like who's interested in what here. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah, no, I mean, at the end of the day, look, Frank Warren has an issue right now with Turkey, but if Turkey gives him a big opportunity, he could be sitting there right next to him too. I mean, it is what it is. That's the way boxing is. That's the way, we've kind of gotten to this situation, because money talks,
Highest bidder.
Yeah. So, I mean, I remember, I think it was like in the 1980s, there was a promoter who like a guy who was doing bank robberies or something like that to finance his boxing promotion company or something along those lines. And everyone wanted to get in a business with him. And I'm sure people knew, oh, this guy didn't make his money in any legitimate way. But people, if you have money, they're gonna work with you. You know what I mean? But yeah, no. At the end of the day, it's like I think that for some of these guys, some of the big players, they're making money like they've never made before. So, whatever issue you have, you're going to set it aside, in the short term. And, boxing, but you have to have a short-term memory in boxing. I mean, it takes a special kind of person to be able to do business in that kind of cutthroat world. And I think that at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to is like, all right, how can I make the most amount of money that I can? Um, but going back to my earlier point, I actually think that right now, for if you look at the guys that Zuffa is signing, a lot of them are people that weren't getting opportunities, and if they're being
Which
promised,
there's plenty of those right now.
there's a lot of, yeah, 100%, especially now with the way that boxing is sort of or the media landscape is in a wait and see kind of
Top
thing.
Rank not having a streaming deal.
Exactly. So I think for a lot of guys, it makes sense. And it's a great opportunity for them because, they're getting guaranteed numbers of fights. So I think for guys like that who sort of can't write their own ticket, it makes sense. And, the more players in a market that are making bids on your future, the more you can demand. So I think that for right now, I don't know what's going to happen down the line, but for right now, I think it's actually in the short term very good. I think that in order to have that, sort of to maintain that leverage, you need to keep those players in the marketplace as long as you can.
I guess where I get worried about it, right, is it's like if they were just another promoter jumping in the market like ProBox or Salida or whoever it is that's putting on cards right now, they do a great job. Like, great. The more platforms, the better. I guess it's their sort of vocal desire to wipe out the competition and be the NBA, be the behemoth, where nobody else gets the viewership. And I wonder if they are being or will be effective in that pursuit. Obviously, I hope they won't, but I don't know that we've ever seen like an entity want that, even at least in my lifetime.
I mean, I think we've seen it. And obviously, there were I think the big common denominator in a lot of these things is getting the power away from the sanctioning bodies. And so we've seen players like that, but they obviously didn't have the capital that Turkey Al Sheikh and TKO have. And I think that when you hear someone like Eddie Hearn, who, while he had made some significant moves in the United States market, he's kind of, stepped back a little bit from that because, he hasn't had as great a success in some of these things. But he's still a major player. When he's able to have cutting um sort of like criticism of the UFC model and it actually lands, I think it tells you that maybe it's a little too soon to write everyone off. Because in a lot of ways, what he's saying makes sense. Like your vision is we're gonna get rid of the belts and make it my own belt. You know what I mean? Like it's when you hear it, the oversimplification of it, or if you hear when you hear it in just simplified terms, it makes it sound a lot less formidable. So I think that there are going to be people that will benefit from, say, the Zuffa model. And I think that there are going to be a lot of entrepreneurs out there that don't, think that that's the right move for them, and they're going to build themselves up outside of that, ecosphere and either succeed there or increase their own marketability
Sure.
and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, so I mean, I think it's I don't want to be I think that there's obviously cause for alarm, that people need to wake up and get serious about the way that they're doing business. And I think that one of the things that Dana White said that I agree with 100% is that there is no greater PR for his vision than just watching the WBC. Which is actually funny to me because the WBC, while they're much more brazen about the things that they do, I think the WBA is actually far worse. And like I don't even think that the WBA should be allowed to exist. Even if I agree 100% with the idea that the sanctioning bodies have gone too far. Um, and I believe that there still is a place for some sanctioning bodies. I think that you can't really. I don't know how you justify the WBA, but I agree with Dana on that people are seeing what's going on with the WBC and the absolute lack of awareness of how they're coming off with this is, I think, a greater threat to the current uh, guard of boxing than anything that Zuffa is even, saying. Because I mean,
Yeah.
you could just see it. Like these guys, they don't care. You know what I mean? They really, I guess the word is shameless. I don't know.
Do you think that Turkey shares in that interest with Dana though, to quote unquote wipe out the competition and sort of like have a one hand washes the other monopoly? Or do you think he's kind of interested in like sitting up at the top and he's the Coca-Cola and Zuffa is the Sprite and Matchroom is the Fanta and Golden Boy is the Diet Coke or whatever the fuck else they have? Like, do you think he's happy to keep them kind of at each other? And but in the meantime, everyone's happy to take his money and his praise, if you will.
No, I think I believe what he's saying, like that he really wants it to be like a league. I think that's a vision that he has. And I think that he saw the UFC model and he's like, why can't we just do that with boxing? I mean, it's sort of the same mindset of, I just saw this Dutch or Danish kickboxer and
Yeah.
why not fight Alexander Usyk? You know what I mean? What was another one? I remember when like the WWE was like the first thing that was doing stuff with Saudi, and the one of the wrestlers that they requested to be in the largest Royal Rumble battle that they've ever had was Yokozuna, who'd been dead for 20 years. And then it just WWE's like, we can't get him, unfortunately, but here's another sumo wrestler. So it's sort of that kind of mindset. Like, yeah, why can't we just do it why can't we just do boxing, but it's like the UFC? So we're gonna find out like how much money you can put into like the boxing, and how much money you could put into boxing to get the UFC model in a way that works like because the UFC model only works if if they're Coca-Cola. You know what I mean? I feel so like we'll see how that progresses. But like and obviously it helps a lot. That a lot of people for the old guard's perspective, it helps a lot because a lot of the people who are fighting now, they grew up, they wanted the WBC green belt, they wanted the whatever. I mean, I knew boxers that had a WBO title on tattooed on their arm when they were amateurs You know what I mean? So there is still that brand loyalty, and
And a lineage. The lineage, I think, is important too. My favorite fighter had that belt, and it means something to me now to have it.
yeah, exactly. So I think that works in their favor.
I'm the last thing I'm wondering about how all this plays out. Like, at what point do UFC fighters? And I think one of the great
I think now I know what
concerns.
you're going to ask, and I think they should be asking that
But
right
the
now.
concerns, Ben, does the UFC 80 to the big man, 20 to the fighter, does that play out in boxing? And now we're seeing Conor Ben get 15 mil to fight Regis Prograis, who has no legs left. Like, at what point does a UFC star who hasn't seen 15 mil in their whole career go, "Hey man, what the fuck? Like, I
We're
built
seeing
your
that.
brand." Yeah.
We're seeing that. When we saw,
Are we? I'm out of touch with UFC, so I guess I don't know if there is backlash from them.
yeah, I don't even watch UFC. I don't find it entertaining. But like, what is who is this guy I saw? One of like their big guys was recently saying like, what the hell? Like this guy Conor Ben, like, and all respect to Conor Ben, like that's awesome for him. Um, he's not that kind of a fighter that at that level that usually would make that kind of money. So
Right. For guys like us, it's like, yeah, he's like a good B minus B level fighter, you know?
yeah, yeah, I can't even understand how that. I don't know. If I had that kind of money, I'd probably do something else with it. But good for them. That's why I'm not a boxing promoter because I don't understand. I don't see the big picture of these things. But yeah, no, like I think that a lot of these guys are gonna start seeing this. Like, what the hell? Like, I'm out there breaking my ass and because I was when this was how I would always and of course, I'm a guy from Jersey. I'm gonna break some balls, and I'm gonna, say some things that are intentionally aimed to upset people. And I would always tell people because that was the what was the UFC that they used to say? Oh, well, if it was a real fight,
If
boxing's not.
Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather walked into an alley, who's coming out? You know, that's like their thing.
Yeah, and I would always be like, well, you guys just talk about that real fight shit because that's your way of distracting from the fact that these guys are making like, nothing compared to what, the boxes are being made. So like I mean, if one guy walks into an alley, another guy walks into an alley, and this guy can grapple a guy, but he's making $750,000, and the boxer, is walking out of that alley with 75 million, who's the fucking idiot? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
And
just-
I always love that the harsh irony that they can't see of like, dude, they're all Trump guys, they're all right wing and shit, and yet the free market cap actually exists in UFC and not in boxing.
yeah, yeah, no, I mean, it's like the idea of capitalism and then what capitalism actually looks like, in applied to the real world where, capital is, sort of centered in one area
Well,
only.
because in our sport, the fighters are the capitalists in many sense, and in their sport, the fighters are the employees, and it's just a completely different relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Like sort of the UFC market to me looked like I don't know if you remember that documentary where they looked at Walmart and how they would just come in and like wipe out all the small businesses in the town and then like everyone works for Walmart and so that's sort of what it was. And boxing was like, hey, you can have Joe's restaurant right next to Mike's glasses, right next to, you know what I'm saying? So like that's sort of like what people thought of what capitalism really looks like, the mom and pop versus what it actually looks like in America now, right? Or the Philippines. So like, yeah, no, I actually, I think that the MMA fighters specifically are going to be like, okay, what the hell is going on here? Like, but what are you gonna do, right? You're gonna start your own MMA promotion, like
I
so.
and they'll probably even be like, "Shit, you've been talking shit about this sport, saying it ain't shit forever, and now you're here paying these guys millions of dollars. I'm getting 20% of the revenue on my fight." You know?
I mean, yeah, that's what it is, though. It's like that's exactly what it is, and do something about it, right? Like, so I mean, what are you gonna do? There's not a whole lot you can do about it. So, yeah, I think it's tough for the MMA guys watching this. But if they couldn't have seen that before, that's on them. That's
Facts.
got nothing to do with me. But I don't watch MMA. I really couldn't tell you who the guys are. people point out, oh, this guy's that fighter. I'm like, oh, like,
Yeah, I know like Chuck Liddell and I know like George St. Pierre. That's about as deep as I go.
yeah. I mean, I'm pretty much right behind you on that, but it's like I feel for them in terms of the what the money they're making or the money that they should be making. But that's why, you gotta do something about it. Like, what do you want me to tell you? Like, that's really kind of it's not exactly in my field of expertise.
Well, speaking of field of expertise, Ryan, who are some of the guys that you're working with right now in the gym? Is there anybody young, up and coming amateurs that you've been taking to tournaments all over that you're excited about?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking. Actually, I work with a young amateur by the name of Andriy Lischuk, who's from the Ukraine. He lives in Linden, New Jersey now. But I train him out of Park Elite at Roselle Park, New Jersey. And yeah, we just went to nationals in Colorado about 2 weeks ago, and we got the silver medal. I thought we won, but hey, what are you gonna do, right?
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. But not gonna lie, that it would have felt a lot better to get that gold. But yeah, Andre fought the fight of his life. I thought we won all 3 rounds, but that's boxing sometimes. But he's a great young talent. And he's only got 15 fights. He's been boxing for a few years, but 5 of those fights have been like the last 2, 3 months. So he's gonna have a very busy 2026. And he's only 17 years old. He's gonna be a serious talent. And yeah, that's who I'm working for right now. Obviously, shout out to Sebastian Mazeneth. At the moment, he's taking a break from boxing. He had a super busy last 2 years, so I completely get it. But yeah, no, I just love boxing. Like, boxing is one of those things that I remember Larry Merchant, used to say, nothing's gonna fix it, nothing's gonna save it. And there was always sort of the sameness to boxing, and obviously that has sort of changed in the last couple years. But you know, I look at boxing how it saved my life. I was like a juvenile delinquent running around Union City, New Jersey, growing up. In and out of like group homes and juvenile detention and special education schools, and you know boxing sort of put me on the straight and narrow. So I always feel that boxing saves many more people than it kills, which is a kind of you know yeah, I mean, that's a heavy thing to say about a sport where people really do get hurt. But I do look at boxing as a positive in the world. And yeah, it's sort of like uh, when I was young and I was starting out in writing, a very established writer told me something that stuck with me. You got to be more in the writing world than in the boxing world. You know what I mean? Like I have to have that mentality. And for a long time, I did. But as I got older and, obviously becoming a father, I realized that how much boxing actually changed my life for the better. And, how I wouldn't be where I am, or I wouldn't be, I mean, I probably wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for boxing. So I look at it, boxing as like sort of like my gospel, you know what I mean? And to be able to have a positive influence on young people's lives, even guys I don't really train, like I'll be at an amateur show and I look at amateur boxing differently from professional boxing because amateur, you're talking about kids. These are people that are there not for any other reason other than they want to make something of themselves, right? It's not a business, amateur boxing. At
It's
least
as
it,
close to a boiled down purity.
yeah, it's not a business for the kids at least, right? So, and I'm always like, I try to big up them and try to like, even if they lose a tough decision, I try to big up. That's why, like, in the pros, yeah, you lose one pro fight, and that's a lot of money. In the amateurs, even when we get robbed, I'm still like, okay, great fight, man. Yeah, I would never try to tear down another athlete. But that's how I feel about boxing, and for as long as I feel that way, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I mean, I'm a volunteer coach. I'm here to help kids, and I feel like it's like one of the best things I've ever done in my life.
I know you spent a pretty significant amount of time in Greenland doing various tournaments. What was that trip like?
Oh man, I love Greenland. Shout out to Mahmoud over there from Fight Club Nanook. You know, Nanook is actually the Inuit word for polar bear. But I'll be happy to tell you that I didn't see any live polar bears there. I saw some polar bear meat at the market. They have like a wet market there, and there was a guy who, I mean, obviously a lot of people hunt polar bears there. He had a polar bear rug in his living room. Um, and um and then he hands me a bone. He's like, "Yeah, hold this bone." I'm like, "Wow, this is a cool bone. What is it?" "Oh, it's a polar bear dick bone." I'm like, "I didn't know they had dick bones." So now you know that as well. That's a real thing. And believe it or not, I think I held a walrus dick bone too.
Wow.
And that was significantly bigger. So if you were ever wondering,
They
what
were really giving you all the nature's measurements out there, bro.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it really helps you understand, makes you see how small the world you really is. But yeah, no, Greenland is awesome. I loved it out there. I've been there twice. And again, it's like one of these things because uh, the first time we went, because I had done a story on the only Greenlandic pro fight to ever take place in in Greenland. And it took place in the capital of Nuuk, and I wrote about it, and I was like, wow, like
What year did that happen? Is that like old history or recent?
2023.
Okay.
And so I wrote a feature about it, and then like, I love doing these sort of random like boxing location stories, right? Like I wrote about Malta's boxing scene, like did you know Malta had a boxing scene? You do now. But like Greenland, and there's this culture of boxing, and I thought it was such a great story. And then they reach out to me, hey, you want to bring a team here? Sure, why not? Let's do it. So I brought a team of boxers there, and it was a lot of fun. It was a great cultural exchange. And I mean, the Greenlandic people are some of the coolest people you'll ever meet. They're so down to earth and they were so welcoming. Like we were walking like to like and there's like only like it's like the capital city of Greenland, Nuuk. And it had like something like it was like I think it was like 15,000 people. And there's not a whole lot of like influx of like tourists coming, right? So I just like we're just walking to the supermarket and they were just like all these kids are just like, yeah, man, what's going on? And they were like, I guess through social media, they'd seen people dapping each other up. And so like they're practicing their daps on us. And like, I mean, it was like really cool. And these are some of the like the just the most genuine people you'll ever meet. And like for instance, I I don't go to nightclubs anymore. That's not my thing. I don't even really like to drink. I used to like to drink a lot, but I don't anymore. But but when I would go to a club, I would never talk to anyone. I'm just, I got my drink and I'm listening to whatever. I don't even know what was popular at the time. Like maybe the chain smokers. Actually, it was before that. And then I'm not talking to her. Oh, I go to the club out there because that's like there's like a big club over there. Shout out to Daddies. And you're talking to everyone because you're friends with everyone. You're really friends. Like everyone on Friday and Saturday night is at these places, and you're all chilling, and it's a great, and people are just that friendly. You catch up with, and you can have. I never had like real serious conversations with people in a nightclub, but I did there, and there's so many great people over there. Um, one of the things one of the things I'm grateful for is that I was able to like work with. So after the fights. I would work with some of the Greenlandic boxers and help them with their techniques and stuff like that. I would train everyone. Like I would sit there with little kids and work on, and they're so hungry. They're sponges for boxing knowledge. And I would bring boxing memorabilia. People would give me shit all the time. Like I don't, you'll never see me wear boxing gear. But I would bring the shit with me to Greenland and just give it away to the kids. And um, Like everyone, they were sponges for boxing. So like and then they still hit me up on Instagram to this day. Like some of these boxers, we went in September, I think, last time or something like that, and for a show, and we were able to like do correct their techniques. They'll ask me about weight cuts and stuff like that, and all these things. Like, so I'm very glad to share whatever experience and knowledge I have of boxing with them, and and in return, it's just great to see like these people who are so hungry for boxing and so hungry to make their presence felt on the world stage, just sort of like, become their best selves.
That's awesome, man. I think that's like the best reason to get into boxing, man. If you can pass it down, that's a beautiful thing. Um, I guess the last thing I would love to ask you about, man, is your thoughts on Ryan Garcia's win over Mario Barrios, which I personally just didn't call that one, man. I saw Mario is a pretty reliable old pro, and Ryan is a very talented but like erratic, unpredictable, unreliable young guy who's just like couldn't get his head straight. And he boxed a beautiful fight, man. That was about as disciplined as I can remember ever seeing him look. I thought Mario just looked lost. He looked like he couldn't pull the trigger. He did look like maybe a little bit of an older fighter with a one track mind. But I was super impressed with Ryan as a whole. How did you? What was your takeaway from that matchup?
Honestly, that's kind of what I thought was going to happen. I mean, when they're putting all that money, I mean,
Even after the Rolly fight, though, you thought he could be that disciplined for a 12 round fight?
yeah, yeah, I did. I think that because he got to a point in his career by, sort of um he got to that point not by accident, as he actually had power. He always had
Of
power.
course.
I thought there were obviously technical issues with him, but I also thought that Mario Barrios wouldn't be the kind of guy that would be able to run him over. I actually thought that Mario Barrios would look a lot better against Pacquiao. I thought he would beat Pacquiao, in a very like dominant way. Like, and when he didn't, I was like, okay, what's going on with this guy? You know what I mean? And Mario Barrios, I feel like one of those guys that, they say, and not to knock him, because, at the end of the day, he beat a lot of good fighters, but you either become, I think, 30% better, or I forget what the number they say, 30% better or 30% worse when you become champion. I think he became 30% worse as when he became a champion and he stopped growing. And yeah, I was not surprised by that whatsoever. I thought that Mario was going to um like do exactly what he did, but do more of it. I thought Mario's best bet was to try and gas out Garcia, but Ryan had an outstanding jab. Um, and Mario never got his head off the line. And you're just like, if you can kind of close your eyes and reach out and touch the guy, I mean, that's an easy night, like so like Mario never was able to move his head, get inside, and make Ryan think and make him respect his power. Mario doesn't, in that sense, doesn't really have power like at like the top level. But Ryan, what he looked like to me was like he reminded me of Oscar De La Hoya, and like Oscar was like a guy who came from a lower weight and then filled in really as a welterweight. When I saw his body at 147, like man, he should have been
The
here.
most comfortable he ever looked, for sure.
Yeah, he looked like he should have been there this whole time. And I think that when people are like, "Oh, well, he's got his dad back in his corner." Yeah, sometimes that's the best thing. I actually feel that you can have too many cooks, in the kitchen when it comes to boxers. Um, like when I see guys that they rise up the ranks and then they bring on like a big name trainer replacing their real trainer, I think you lose something. Like Oscar De La Hoya, for instance. Oscar De La Hoya, I believe, was his best with Robert Alcazar. And you can say whatever you want about Robert Alcazar's, knowledge and whatever as a trainer, but you can't say anything about his knowledge as the trainer of Oscar De La Hoya, because he got the best out of Oscar De La Hoya. When you start making a guy do things that are not in his nature, you kind of lose, you get lost in the sauce, so to speak. So I think that Ryan Garcia just went back to what he does best. And he made that statement in the first 30 seconds by people say, oh, he didn't have a right hand. And then he goes out there and throws some of the best right
Throw
hand.
six of them. Yeah.
I mean, you would forget that he had a left hook, the way he was fighting, Mario Barrios. I thought Mario Barrios took one hell of a beating. Like that was a bad beating, and I would have.
And it was a tactical beating. Like he got out thought, he got out skilled, he got out quick, like in every capacity. It wasn't like he just got beat up because even in like the Ramos fight, they both got beat up. But this one, it was just he never, like, not even really to like the ninth or 10th round did he get anything fucking going.
Yeah, I never got anything going. I mean, it looked like he stopped trying to win midway through the fight. He just wanted to go the distance because he wasn't selling out the way you need to. But that just shows the beauty of a great left jab because when Ryan threw, obviously, it takes a lot of energy to throw those power punches. But when he needed to rest, he rested on the outside with his jab. Like I tell people, don't turn it off, just because you're tired. That's when you gotta use your jab, get to the outside, left and right, move, like, but keep the guy guessing. And they did their homework on Mario Barrios in a way that was so comprehensive. That really was a matter of just being completely prepared because Ryan knew where his exits were. He was able to get out to the side and knew where Mario's blind spots were and where he wasn't going to be able to cut the ring. I mean, at the end of the day, you know what? I don't know how great of a trainer Henry Garcia is, but I know he's the best trainer that there is for Ryan Garcia. Ryan, he got the most out of Ryan, and sometimes that's what it comes down to. It's just having the right guy being able to communicate to you. That's why I don't believe in like. I remember back in the day, and these are two guys who are very good friends of mine, Oscar Suarez and Emmanuel Stewart. Rest in peace to both of them. But they used to alternate rounds talking in the corner to Prince Nassim Ahmed. And I didn't agree with that at all. I'm like, you need to be used to hearing one voice and because you're gonna respond stronger to that one voice. Like when I'm in the corner, and I think this is with most boxers, one guy talking. You know what I mean? If you got something to say it to the one guy in the corner and he's gonna communicate that. And obviously if you have a good corner, you're gonna, be able to have that respect and have that understanding of how things work. Like shout out to another guy I work with a lot, Aaron Watson. Aaron was the best at that. He would make sure that when we're going up the stairs, he putting the stool in and I'm like gonna go talk to the boxer. He told me exactly what he felt that the boxer needed to know, and I could center him and be like, listen, this is what we got to do. Shut up. I need you to breathe. This is it. This is what you need to do. You want to win this fight, this is what you got to do. And we had that understanding, and that's how we got the most out of our guys working together. Um, so I think that Ryan Garcia, there may be great trainers out there, but what he showed is that the guy he responds most to or best to is Henry Garcia, his father.
Well, I think it was just a limiting of distractions, right? That whole Devin Haney buildup was so manic and insane. And there was, I look at Ryan a little bit like a child star because of how he came up on social media and the age at which he had a ton of eyes on him very quickly. And there's a lot of people that come with that. There's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of people that want a piece of you. And it just, he kind of got offline and got in the gym with his pops on this one and simplified. And it seemed like that did wonders for him. I guess what I wonder in terms of the trajectory of Ryan Garcia, like, is he going to be a generational, not just a generational talent, but a generational great? Or is he going to be a Victor Ortiz that kind of gives us these high points and then breaks our heart over and over again if you're rooting for him? I still can't quite tell, but it definitely seems like they're moving in the right direction after this one.
I think that Ryan Garcia is who he is. I mean, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. I mean, he beat Mario Barrios, who,
I say
respected.
generational talent, by the way, because I see all the natural gifts that everybody else sees.
Yeah, no, they're obviously there, but at the end of the day, it's like there are going to be guys that are going to give him more than that. I think that
Yeah.
I think a guy like even Devin Haney.
Tiger
Who,
Johnson. There's lots of great welterweights that I think would give him a tougher fight.
yeah, I mean, I think most guys would give a tougher fight at the top level. I think that I think it's interesting the idea of him fighting Shakur Stevenson just because of the size difference. They're talking about that, and I think the size difference could really not just in terms of weight, but Ryan's a longer fighter.
Mhm.
If he's able to get a measure for that range and then land from a distance that Shakur wouldn't be able to counter at him from, I think that could be interesting. Um, but like I think that, for instance, like um, even someone like Devin Haney now. Haney, in a situation where he isn't the only guy making the weight, could be a real tough fight for him, just in terms of his jab, and being able to break up the rhythm. I really do think that those several pounds did make a difference.
Hell yeah.
I mean, that's boxing. That's real. At the end of the day, it just shows you like someone's always going to get the short end of the stick on that because the show must go on, but at whose expense? Yeah, I really do think that it really comes down to the matchups. I think he's got a belt, and right now Ryan can kind of write his own ticket, and he's talking about. I was surprised that he didn't go straight to Conor Ben. Like I thought that that was the move. That's really what I
I
thought.
think he's enough of a boxing guy to know that that's looking behind you. I really do. I don't think that as much as he loves to talk a little shit on a stage, I just don't know that as a fight has any interest to him. Otherwise, he would have
I
said
don't think it has
something.
that interest in me or anyone, but I think it has interest to like the guy who's got all the money. You know what I
It
mean?
has interest to Brits too. I mean, you know how they ride or die for their guys. They'll fucking they'll. I've always said I love British boxing and British fans, but they are a little myopic in terms of only being able to see things from their guys' perspective.
I mean, yeah, 100%, but it's also like at the end of the day, like there's money to be made. And if Conor Ben is getting that much money to fight Regis Prograis, how
So
much
nuts.
I mean, I can't even understand
It's
that.
so fucking crazy, dude.
I like Regis. I think he's a great guy, and I had a good time when I linked up with him in Vegas last year. But that's insanity. If he's getting that much to fight Regis Prograis, how much money is there to fight Ryan Garcia? Um, you know what I'm saying? Like boxing's like that. But it's not the best fights that make the money. It's the fights that the certain guy wants to pay. Like I mean. Yeah, who knows? Maybe Ryan Garcia could fight that Dutch kickboxer guy after Usyk's done with him.
Well,
Like,
listen, according to Boxingscene, he's saying, fuck it, I'll come down to 140 and take your belt from you. I don't know if that's real life or if that's just like how he's feeling right now. But I do think that would kind of be the most interesting version of the fight.
Shakur?
Ryan is saying he'll go down to 140 to fight Shakur.
I mean, you know, I heard that before, right? I mean, I've heard Ryan Garcia say he's gonna make 140 before and then doesn't. So, I mean, that's really you know what I'm saying? That's sort of I think Ryan Garcia has shown his cards that he'd rather instead of like weaken himself, he'd rather just take the financial hit. If that's the situation, I think Shakur has to make sure that the contract says that, hey, I'm taking 98% of your purse if you do that. Because Ryan has shown he don't care. He for him it was worth it to replay the highlights of him dropping Devin Haney. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I disagree with Shakur if he wants to do that, but also there's a lot of money to be made, and especially for Shakur, because like Shakur was talking about fighting. What's this guy's name? Conor Ben. I think that Shakur really does need these dance partners, and I think that's a very attractive dance partner in terms of lucrative paydays. But I would advise him to be as cautious in the way that he negotiates that fight as he is in how he fights the fights.
Well, shit, bro. This has been one hell of an episode, Ryan. It's always a pleasure to get to podcast with you. And when I get to see you at fights and all that, is there anybody, anything, anywhere, anyone that you want to shout out before we wrap it up?
No, just I thank you so much for having me on. It's always great, chopping it up with a fellow Hudson County dude.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? We could have done this out on Bergenline Avenue or
I
like
think the next one we'll do in person. I think that's a
yeah,
good plan.
you know what I'm saying? Because you know, actually, you live right. I have a lot of family. I'm from actually 2 towns away from you. I'm from Cliffside Park, New
I
Jersey,
know.
and my grandma still lives out in North Bergen, so I'm over there all the time. But yeah, no, there's a lot of great Cuban spots over on Bergen Line. You know that we could do this at some time. But yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, and yeah, man, wishing you another 150 whatever podcasts and more.
Well, I appreciate that, bro. Ben, and to everyone watching, stay tuned. You're going to see the first in person Slip and Weave podcast. Ryan, appreciate you, bro. I'll talk to you soon, brother.
On page, bro.